Welcome to the Leaders in Payments podcast, where we talk to C-level leaders from across the payments landscape. We'll be discussing the products and services that impact the payment space today, as well as trends and predictions for the future of payments. We will also hear stories from our guests about their journeys to the top.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Leaders in Payments podcast. I'm your host, Greg Myers, and today's special guest is Artie Minson, the president and CEO of LeafLink. So, Artie, thank you so much for being here, and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So let's go ahead and dive right in if you don't mind. Tell our audience a little bit about yourself, maybe where you grew up, where you went to school, where you currently live, a few things like that.
Sure. Lifelong New Yorker. Grew up in Queens, New York, a town called the Rockaways. Went to high school in Manhattan. It's a funny story because actually the founder of LeafLink and I attended the same small high school in New York, although about 20 years apart, but it has a very tight alumni network. So that's a little bit how we got connected. Post high school, went to Georgetown, where I met my wife. And actually, we have 3 sons who all attended Georgetown. So that's been fun. And then got my MBA at Columbia and spent most of my career in really the media and tech industries. It's interesting. Cannabis is such a unique sort of state-by-state market. And I spent a lot of time in the cable industry, which was obviously very locally and federally regulated, obviously a lot less regulated than cannabis, but had very state-by-state dynamics. And so I think when the LeafLink board and management team were looking for someone to come in, I think some of my prior experience on tech industries with a regulatory overlay and, state by state dynamics were, something that attracted them to me. Currently, I live out on Long Island. We've always spent our summers out here. When our youngest guy went off to college, we moved here full time. Prior to that, we sort of did a back and forth between Connecticut and Long Island. So that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. So let's discuss LeafLink. So tell our audience what LeafLink does.
Yeah, so LeafLink is one of the leading tech providers in the cannabis sector. And we focus on the B2B side of the industry. So we connect licensed brands and licensed retailers to each other. So for example, order management, integrating with your accounting systems, providing data and analytics tools, providing B2B advertising capabilities. And we process about 50% of the licensed cannabis orders in the US. So we do a little over $5 billion of sort of orders annually on the platform. And then over the last year, we've done a couple of things we're really excited about on the banking and the payment side. One is we've integrated into our core marketplace offering a number of payment solutions that basically allow brands and retailers to settle transactions on LeafLink, which is obviously normal to a lot of other e-commerce categories. But, the cannabis industry, which is still very cash heavy in the way business is done, this allows us to be, again, just sort of a much more sort of normalized e-commerce marketplace. And then we have launched through an acquisition, a banking solution where we basically can offer a banking product to our customers, again, who are generally pretty underbanked given sort of the federal issues of banking the cannabis sector. So we now can offer folks a fully integrated banking solution on our platform.
Okay. So if you don't mind, let's dive a little deeper into the payments side. Obviously payments in and of itself is heavily regulated, and then you add the heavy regulation of cannabis on top of that. Sort of how did you guys decide to do that, and kind of maybe what was the thought process in adding payments?
Yeah. So if you look at the industry today, one of the biggest challenges the industry has is generally on the bad debt side. And often that is, I would say that retailers often are, again, sort of living hand to mouth in the industry because there are a number of burdensome tax regs on the industry that effectively result in cannabis plant touching companies being taxed on effectively their gross profit. And so, retailers are living hand to mouth, and as a result, so are the brands. And so the tool we have developed over the last year is what we call post or pay on sell-through, which is effectively for a brand, it guarantees that when their product is sold, they will get paid. And for the retailer, what it allows is for a lot less inventory to be tied up in working capital. So a retailer can effectively, take the product on consignment. And then what they will do is once that product is sold, we'll basically do weekly settlement. The seller, the brand, doesn't have to worry about collections anymore. The retailer can basically put product on their shelves without tying lots of money up in working capital. And it's been a win-win for both sides of the industry. We've begun to sort of roll this out in a couple of states so far, in Michigan, Colorado, and Mississippi. And we're seeing really, really healthy adoption on both sides of the marketplace, which, we're super excited about.
Okay. And those payments, how are they made? Are they typically like ACH type payments, or how is the money flow?
Correct. So the money is basically what we can do is we effectively can link into the retailer's bank account. And again, we have now a banking solution we can offer, and we can go in and effectively take that money out of the bank account when the product is sold.
Okay. And so you don't touch the retail side. So the retail, like you see the strip malls and you have the cannabis store and they're selling to consumers. You're not playing in that space.
So we are purely a tech company. We do not have our own brands and we do not have our own retail stores, but we provide software to both the brands and the retailers for them to run their businesses more efficiently. So if you are a brand, you want to list your brand on our marketplace, and retailers can then come in and they can, when they're doing their monthly purchasing or biweekly purchasing, your brand is listed. They can place orders and they can integrate that in with their accounting systems. They can see, frankly, from our data tools, which products of theirs are selling relative to other products. And if they want to, target purchasing managers through B2B advertising, they can do all of that. And on the retail side, again, we can provide advanced sort of inventory analytics and tooling so that retailers are making sure they're putting the right inventory in their stores and they're pricing it correctly. We only obviously deal with the regulated market. So, in a lot of states, you still have a pretty material unlicensed market. And obviously we only deal with licensed brands and retailers on our marketplace. But effectively, as I said, about 50% of the regulated cannabis orders, B2B orders in the market, they occur on the LeafLink platform.
Okay. So without going too deep into this, because I think we could probably talk hours about the compliance and regulatory side of things, maybe just give us the high level sort of like, how does the industry work? Because I think it'd be interesting for our audience to kind of know, like everyone knows there's sort of the federal laws and state laws and sort of maybe how is all that playing out?
Yeah, it's really interesting. And it really is very much state by state dynamics. And so you will have some states that, frankly, retail stores own brands. And there may be, frankly, caps on the amount of stores, or it may be uncapped on the amount of stores. And so you have some markets that are very fragmented and highly competitive. And then you have other markets that there's very much a concentration of sort of brands and retailers who can control that market. And so for us, we could have markets where we frankly have hundreds of brands on our platform, and we can have others where We have in the less than 50 brands on our platform, but it's a highly sort of concentrated marketplace. And so what we want to do is really make sure that the brands and the retailers have the tools that they need to run their business. And what's difficult, there are many things that are difficult being cannabis brand and retailer. Some are that, frankly, because of the fact that it's still federally illegal, there are often just companies that work with cannabis providers. And so a lot of sort of the tooling that these companies use has had to been homegrown to the industry. And often they are swivel chairing, I would say, between 5 to 7 different systems. And so, what we wanted to do is really have sort of as best you can an end-to-end technology stack where someone can come and run like you would on another website, total end-to-end e-commerce solution. And that obviously includes payments. Because there was really limits on banks working with cannabis providers, the industry grew up in such a way that it was really cash was still a lot of how business was done. So folks paid COD, or when they did pay, they still paid in cash because it was difficult to even have bank accounts. Now with us having, again, banking partnerships that we can offer to our customers and having payment tooling so that you will get paid when your product sells, that can make the industry much more, what I would say is normal, modern e-commerce, as opposed to, there aren't other websites you go where you place an order and you don't pay for it on that website. That has historically been, unfortunately, how cannabis dealt with ordering. Was the payment side of it was completely separated from the order side. We've now integrated those together. And so we think going forward, that creates really massive efficiency on both sides, for both the brands and the retailers to run their operations more efficiently.
Okay. So it sounds like having that kind of one-stop solution for all things to operate your business, and then having payments are definitely sound like differentiators. But what else do you feel like differentiates your company from your competitors?
I think that in our industry, I think what happened, again, cannabis had the federal legalization has taken longer to happen. And there was a lot of money raised in the industry that, gave companies the ability to sort of develop a number of sort of different technology solutions. But as it has taken longer for federal legalization, frankly, new capital into the industry has been difficult to come by. We were fortunate. We did a $125 million equity raise about 18 months ago. That allowed us to do a couple of things. It allowed us to continue to invest in this end-to-end technology platform. It allowed us also to begin to consolidate the tech stack for the industry. So today, as I said, there's just too many different providers providing what I would call point solutions that in another industry would be sort of integrated end to end. So, I think a differentiator for us are a couple of things. I think we start from a place of, 50% share of the marketplace business. That gives us the ability to add a number of solutions that we think our customers, based on conversations with them, are sort of clamoring to have in an end-to-end solution. So we have had the ability to organically invest. We also, with our balance sheet, have had the ability to continue to be acquisitive on the M&A front, either to, again, add market share or add functionality like our acquisition of Dama, which, added the full banking platform to our customer base. And that's something, again, I think we will continue to do. Like, we take the view of if it makes sense for our customers that all of these things can come together under one roof, we will continue to either sort of organically or look at acquisition opportunities just to make our customers' lives easier.
Okay. Well, you can answer this obviously from the lens of your industry, but where do you see payments in the industry headed, say, in the next 3 to 5 years?
I think you will have a normalization of the industry in that e-commerce in the industry just includes payments. And that, probably sounds so obvious to you, but we have lived in a world, as I said, where it has been much more a cash world than a sort of normalized payments world. And so our overall goal is to sort of normalize that commerce in cannabis happens just like it does in any other industry. And so what I would like to see is effectively, today where you have sort of, single digit percentages of commerce transactions include a payments component. I expect that, again, over the next few years, 100% of commerce transactions include a payments component. There may be different forms of that, how that transaction on the payment side happens, but it will happen sort of on platform.
Well, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about you. And you talked a little bit about your professional background earlier, but maybe talk to us a little bit more about that, how you started, maybe how you got into this industry, and then sort of how you got to your role there.
Yeah. So as I said, I kind of came up the ranks as a finance person, CFO path. I was CFO of a few publicly traded media and technology companies, AOL, and then Time Warner Cable. And after we sold Time Warner Cable, I got, I would say the itch to do some more startups. I went to WeWork. I was the president, was the chief operating officer, and ultimately actually became the co-CEO there. And that was an amazing ride with a lot of twists and turns. And we could probably fill up a few podcasts with that story. But then, I left WeWork right at the time the pandemic was beginning. And it was a very difficult time during the pandemic. I felt to sort of step back into something, to try to run something, coming in as a CEO during the pandemic. And so I sort of waited till the pandemic was over. And again, still had this startup itch. And Ryan Smith, who was the founder of LeafLink, he and I, as I said, we had attended the same high school in New York. We knew of each other through sort of the alumni network. Ryan had built this company with like amazing market share and, effectively one of the fastest growing categories in the US. And I thought, this could be super interesting. It's bringing together like a lot of different sort of skills that I had from different jobs, and thought it would be, fun to help be on cutting edge of like actually defining what an industry could look like. So many startups are going in and trying to disrupt an existing industry. Whereas this, when you think about it, like we're a startup, all our customers are startup, the regulators are startups, and we're all sort of, working together to define, what this industry should look like 10, 15 years from now. And so it has been, as you can imagine, it's been a pretty interesting journey so far. But I would say that the team and I are really, really excited about, the future of the company. And, we think that when you think about sort of software providers who, super serve or vertical, these sort of vertical software providers, payments has become sort of such a key aspect of their business. And we're really no different in wanting to own sort of a full end-to-end tech stack that embeds payments in it to super serve this industry. So, we have this industry by, the end of the decade is probably a 60 billion plus retail industry. It's probably a 30 billion plus wholesale industry. And those payments need to sort of be processed like any other industries. And so we think that there's a massive opportunity in that going forward.
So what are some things you're passionate about? Maybe one work-related passion and one personal passion.
I think for me, like professionally, I've always been drawn to big challenges. And, as I got into cable when it was sort of disrupting broadcast. I got into, WeWork, which was obviously rethinking how, real estate was going to be used by companies sort of going forward as a tool to make employees' experiences better. And just some other investments that, I have on my own there, whether it's in the education space, whether it is in the technology space. It's just how are they using technology to disrupt existing industries? And so for me, like what I'm passionate about is it a big problem that needs to be solved? Can technology help solve that at scale? And, is this something that will be a huge opportunity for our employees and our shareholders and our customers if we can get this right? So those are the things that sort of attract me to a challenge and what attracted me to LeafLink. And, on the personal front, look, obviously very passionate about my family, 3 boys, all in their 20s. The whole family is our Georgetown Hoyas. We'd love to see the basketball team have a great year this year. We're rooting hard for them. And, if the New York Giants could be a little bit better, we'd love that as well. But, those are the areas that I'm really passionate about.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. If someone came to you and they were interested in a career, maybe in the spaces that you've been successful in, and including, maybe payments in that, as you've learned, how to embed payments, and they came to you for some career advice and they wanted to have a successful career, say in payments, what would you tell them they should do to be successful?
I think, for me, my career has always been about working with people and working with companies that have really, really smart people in it that I felt I could learn from. And that would be, my first is go get your payments experience, your initial payments experience in some of the companies that have really been, sort of on the cutting edge of solving big industry problems. Get that experience, and then, go off from there if you want to do something on your own or you want to do something that's more entrepreneurial, but get that base level of experience in one of the iconic companies in the space, and then go from there.
Okay, great. So obviously we've covered a lot of ground, and hopefully the audience has a better idea of LeafLink and what you guys do and how you've embedded payments. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up the show?
Just that we're super excited about where this industry is going to go. We've gone from really, if you think of in 10 years, we went from no state legalization to now, there are programs, whether recreational or medical, in about 40 states at this point. It's a $30 billion industry that, again, it's going to double over the next several years. And, there are a lot of interesting businesses and technologies that are going to come out of this. And, we're super excited about the future and being a part of it for the industry.
Well, we'll have you on again in maybe 12 months, and we'll get a good update. So, Artie, thank you so much for being on the show today. I know your time is very valuable, so I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Great to be with you.
And to all you listeners out there, I thank you for your time as well. And until the next story.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Leaders in Payments podcast. Make sure you visit our website at leadersinpayments.com, where you can subscribe to the show and where you'll find our show notes. If you enjoyed listening, please share on your social channels as well.